In a post-Super Mario Bros., but pre-Super Mario Bros. World, we are still in a world where we are getting video game adaptations to movies. Lo and behold, the ultimate fighting game / gore porn, Mortal Kombat. My history with the Mortal Kombat franchise, I grew up playing just a little bit of the arcade games back when arcades were still a common thing in my city. Moving on to the fighting genre games for home systems, it wasn't until Mortal Kombat 9 in 2011 where I actually got to get my hands more and get more familiar with this franchise even more so. It wasn't until Mortal Kombat X or Mortal Kombat 10 where I was really getting into the groove of the franchise. I played Mortal Kombat X to absolute death in high school to the point where I juiced every bit of fun out of that game by memorizing and spamming the same most annoying combos you have ever seen in online rank play. I just completely burned myself out of it because it was just no longer fun just beating people over and over again with the same exact moveset every time. It may be fun for some, but not for me personally. So never picked up Mortal Kombat 11. Looks pretty fun, but never played it yet. Maybe one day I will. Maybe one day I'll get it. Maybe one day I won't. Who knows? So with my memory of Mortal Kombat X, I had a decent understanding, at least of the roster that was present in that game. I would say basically nearly every fighter that was in this, save for a few, I completely recognized and understood sort of their base characteristics based off of their few little lines of quirky dialogue and just their moveset and just their whole persona from the games. I could say that this one's kind of in the middle for me. When it comes to action sequences and everything, it's certainly fun to watch. The fun spectacles, decent choreography amongst the talent on screen. Obviously, when it comes to incorporating video game plots into movies certainly want to stretch out the simple concepts that video games have set up. It's not the duty of video games to tell a whole cohesive narrative. It's just to allow players to take control and just have fun. So when you're adapting all of this lore from a video game onto a movie, it's inevitable for writers to extend it, whether we like it or not. Whether it's executed in a engaging or lighthearted manner is obviously going to be up to them, and whether that narrative from a video game is going to hold up for a feature-length film is obviously what we are here to ask. So how is it? Can't say I'm the most stoked when it comes to the genre. If you're hearing this from somebody that is not a massive fan of the games nor a massive fan of the lore, I've only enjoyed this franchise at its core, which is basically just a fighting game with a gory gimmick. I would say the cinematography stuck out to me the most because many of the shots had depth and layer to them, which is surprising. You wouldn't think that the camera and lighting department wouldn't give this much care or attention to a fighting movie. There are certainly shots in this movie where you can just take a whole still image and you could basically make it a screensaver for your desktop. Very impressive to look at. Landscape shots look nice. You don't care about that though. You know why you're here. We are here to watch mystical characters fight each other to the absolute death and brutalize each other to a spectacular gory fashion. And when this movie presents its fatalities on screen, they are certainly flawless. Credit to all the talent and the stunt fight coordinators because I feel like the editing and cutting is what breaks some of these fight scenes for me. Not all of them, but certainly some of them. It's odd because usually the technique when it comes to rapid editing and fighting movies are to disorientate the audience on purpose, or it is to hide the fact that those fighting on screen aren't professional fighters. Something that Jackie Chan said is that, especially in American films or especially in Western films, is that when you do rapid cutting, it makes it obvious to the audience that the performers on screen aren't actually legitimate fighters.
Like an American movie, you can see there's a lot of movement. When the camera angle movement, that means the actor, they don't know how to fight.
And that can be an issue because if your movie is based on mythical beings that are experts in martial arts, you're going to take the audience out when you are sacrificing showing their talents on screen by resorting to quick cutting or by not training the talent enough to make the fighting more convincing. Therefore, you can linger on shots longer. You could do wider shots longer, present longer takes. It's the most disappointing when the actors or choreographers on screen are extremely talented, but their performances and craftsmanship is just completely butchered on the editing floor. I'm not sure what the relation was between the director and the editor, but it was certainly noticeable just how quick and fast-paced the editing was. On paper, that may sound very exciting to watch, but when it comes to delivery, it just makes fight scenes jarring and it just makes it confusing to follow at times. It doesn't mean every shot in this movie is just quickly edited to hell. Every once in a while, when you see a shot that actually lingers and takes its time, the special effects with the makeup and the computer graphics, it's gorgeous and it looks absolutely brutal. brutal to watch. It looks great. It feels as though they are just broadcasting straight X-ray footage from the video games onto the big screen, and that's awesome to watch. Now, when it comes to plot, oh boy. Again, since I'm not a Mortal Kombat fanatic or lore master, I certainly found the story to be very underwhelming. The whole storyline we got in the video games is just that fighters from Earth and fighters from a whole other dimension are brought together to fight in a big grand tournament. The ones from not of Earth, Outworld, as it's called, for those who don't know, they want to take over the Earth. Oh no. So of course it's up to different factions amongst those on Earth and on Outworld. They basically settle their differences with their fists and special abilities. Certain factions, even in the video games, were just very bland and boring compared to other factions. It's funny how, just like in the video games, the same exact factions are so boring. I think a majority of the Earthrealm fighters are just so bland and boring. They've always have been. I never enjoyed playing as them in the video games, and I didn't enjoy watching them even on the big screen. Sorry. Obviously, the Outer World characters are more engaging, but their screen time is certainly way more limited, and the most we get from them is just seeing that they just want to take over Earth and spread their outworldness. Nothing deep there, but for a video game, it will get the job done, but for a feature-length movie here, I don't know if that's enough to keep me engaged. By the end of the day, I don't expect there to be any engaging story with this. I just came here to see bizarre characters fight each other out with their special abilities. I got half of that because half of the fight scenes here were certainly very enjoyable, while the other half was just completely overly edited, in my opinion. That is all I got from the games, and that is all I wanted from the movie. Simple revenge tale is fine enough for me, nothing else. Besides the obvious ones from the video games I remember, I do not remember a single significant event or character that happens here besides just the very end fight between the two biggest icons of the franchise, between Scorpion and Sub-Zero. Besides that though, I just don't care. I just didn't care for the connections between the blood relatives and the bloodline of the family lineage of these fighters going on to the next generation of fighters, and I didn't even go into the movie wanting to care about it. That's all it was for me. So, average fights, average time. 5 out of 10, characters from the game were either underwhelming or annoying with compelling action sprinkled in.
Finish him! Fatality.